Rain fell on the winding roads of West Hills, Portland, like gray threads stitching across the thick November sky. The Hale family's house, red brick, sloping roof, small square-paned windows perched on the hillside, looking down at the pines and scattered rooftops below. The day Arthur Hale died, the rain had fallen the same way, quiet, steady, as if the sky wanted to prolong everything just a little longer. The fading warmth of his presence, the rare sound of leather shoes across the wooden floor each morning, his reminders about unfinished tasks, the notes he wrote in fountain pen on margin-ruled paper. Today, his 4 children gathered in the large living room, before the stone fireplace, where Arthur's portrait watched them with steady gray eyes. They sat around the walnut table, William called Will, the eldest son, Sarah, the only daughter, Jacob, the second son, and Lily, the youngest. On the table was a glass vase with dried birch branches, a few rain-dampened yellow leaves trapped in the rug's fibers. Mrs. Whitaker, the housekeeper who had been with the family for 20 years, carried in a tray of black tea and set it beside the black leather briefcase of Margaret Pierce, Arthur's longtime friend and attorney. Margaret was in her 50s, with cropped hair, bright eyes, and a voice that did not need volume to fill a room. She set down her case, removed her glasses, and nodded to each of them before unlocking the clasp. Margaret began, "First, my condolences. Arthur was a man of relentless work and structure in both business and family. He prepared everything carefully. Today, under his instruction, I will read the will he updated 6 months before his death, witnessed and notarized under Oregon law." The rain drummed against the windows like insistent fingers. Will leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers tightly interlaced. Sarah sat upright, hands on her lap. Jacob tapped the table leg nervously with the tip of his shoe. Lily sat slightly back, cradling a cup of steaming tea that veiled part of her face. Margaret unsealed the wax envelope, drew out the papers, and read steadily. "I, Arthur James Hale, residing in Portland, Oregon, being of sound mind, do hereby declare this my last will and testament. I appoint Margaret Pierce, Esquire, as executor. I bequeath the supervision of my estate, including Hale residential and equity, real properties in my name, and other investment portfolios to my youngest daughter, Lily Ann Hale." The room seemed to lose all air. Sarah turned to Lily. Jacob's eyes narrowed downward. Will let out a dry laugh. "I am sorry what—" Margaret remained calm and turned the page. The explanatory section includes a handwritten note from Mr. Hale. "But first I must confirm the will was signed in my office's signing room, with Arthur's physician attesting to his mental capacity before and after. The process was recorded. Copies can be provided." Will lifted his chin, his voice sharp. "I will need them. And I will demand an independent evaluation of competency." "You may," Margaret replied, "but let me finish." She began to read the handwritten portion, the script firm and slanted. "My children. I give this to Lily not out of greater love, but because she will not treat our home like a spreadsheet. Will, you are diligent, but you believe everything is yours simply because you were first. Sarah, you preserve peace, but at the cost of yourself. Jacob, you are quick and imaginative, but never finish what you start. Lily, you are kind, but you must learn to be firm." Mrs. Whitaker cleared her throat softly, stepping back. The rain kept its rhythm. Outside, a black squirrel darted across the eaves, pausing under the dripping roof. Margaret continued, slower. "In my blood, there is betrayal, not from Lily. I saw you take money from the company when it needed cash most. I stayed silent, hoping you would correct it. You did not. Instead, you blamed your sister. I am saddened more than angered." Will froze, then bristled. Sarah's head jerked upward as if to intervene, but she stopped herself. Jacob turned to Will, eyes half in shock, half in silent confirmation. Lily did not move, as if she were a photograph. "This is fabricated," Will said, though his voice wavered. My father would never use the word betrayal. Quote, "I repaid that temporary loan." "Don't call it a loan," Jacob cut in, for once firm. You withdrew funds from the operating account, unannounced, while the company was under contract to replace the roofs on 4 apartment buildings in Beaverton. I had to take an emergency high-interest loan to pay the crews. Lily ran from team to team for 3 nights so no one would walk off the job. Will snapped toward Jacob. You realize if the waterfront deal had succeeded, we would have doubled our holdings. You realize risk is part of the game. I did what I believed was right for the company. For you, Jacob said quietly. Not the company. Sarah laid a hand on Will's arm. Enough. She turned to Margaret. Is there more, Mrs. Pierce? Margaret nodded. Final clause. If, 1 year from probate, my children cannot run Hale Residential and Equity together, effectively verified independently executor shall liquidate all assets and donate proceeds to Willamette Community Foundation for affordable senior housing. The rain suddenly seemed louder. Sarah drew a sharp breath. Jacob leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Will gave a bitter laugh, no longer fiery, only dark. Lily set down her cup with a soft clink. He has thrown us into a game, Will said. Either fake unity or lose it all. Not a game, Sarah whispered hoarsely. A last chance. Margaret closed the will but kept it before her. There is one more item. She looked to Mrs. Whitaker. The housekeeper nodded, went into Arthur's study, and returned with a mahogany box. Mr. Arthur asked me to keep this safe, she said. Only to be opened today. Inside were handwritten notes, meticulous transfer records from weeks before his hospitalization, a notebook logging calls, and a small folded envelope marked, "For the child whose kindness I saw when no one else did." Margaret did not open it. She slid the box toward Lily. He left this for you. Lily stared at the box, shoulders sinking as though it weighed more than wood. I may open it later, she murmured. If everyone agrees. Will rose, chair scraping the rug. I will speak with my lawyer. We are done here. He strode toward the door but paused as Margaret said, Will, the competency evaluation and video will be sent this afternoon. Without looking back, he said, Send it. Then he opened the door, rain sweeping in, and disappeared beneath the dark eaves. That night, the house filled with small noises again. The Weather Channel murmuring in the kitchen, the fireplace crackling, the clink of spoons, the creak of old wood. Sarah stayed overnight in her childhood room upstairs. Jacob paced in and out of the garage, restless. Lily sat in Arthur's study leather and oak scent, black-bound files lining the shelves. The mahogany box on the desk. She lifted the lid, leafed through notes, contractor names, roof paint schedules, loan rates, tenants, complaints of March mold. Among them, Arthur's lines, half ledger, half monologue. Will still thinks profit is salvation. Must stop habit before it becomes nature. Sarah keeps this house in order by silence. But silence saves no one. Jacob drifts, needing an anchor. None here to tie him down. Lily, if you read this, remember, kindness is not the same as trust. You must walk upright. She stopped at the letter addressed to the child whose kindness I saw when no one else did. She unfolded it. The slanted script read, Lily, my dear, I know you think me harsh. I am. But harshness can be protection. When I am no longer here, I chose you not to give power but to give responsibility. You may refuse. You may ask Margaret to transfer authority. I wrote the contingency. I would not resent you. But if you accept, you will bear resentment. Unfair words. I will not shield you. I hope you will stand firm. Her hands trembled as if carrying something heavy. She leaned back, catching her reflection in the bookcase glass. Pale, hair unkempt, eyes hollow, shoulders stooped. Stand firm, she whispered, the words rising from her throat like someone else's voice. A knock. Sarah entered, sweater ash gray, hair loosely tied. May I? Come in. They sat across the desk. Sarah eyed the box, then Lily's face. Anything. New? Mostly notes, Lily said. And a letter. Not important. What matters is I do not know if I should accept. Sarah gave a weary smile. He wrote all that, and you still doubt. She never said Father Arthur had always been Arthur. Lily, Sarah said gently, you do not have to replace him. You just have to do what he believed you could. I am afraid of Will, Lily admitted. Afraid of his anger, of being dragged into endless fights. Afraid Jacob will try everything at once. Afraid you will endure it all, alone, like before. Sarah stared at the desk lamp. I am afraid too, she said. But maybe fear does not make it smaller. We act, and fear follows behind. Do you think Will really was the betrayer? Sarah flinched at the word. Most likely. But betrayal is heavy. Arthur rarely used such words. If he wrote it, it was to strike hard in someone's mind. So maybe it was not just about money. Maybe something else. What else? Sarah shook her head, eyes down. Not sure I want to know. The next day, Margaret sent each sibling the signing video. They watched separately. Will in his high-rise office at Hale Tower. Jacob in the garage, fiddling with machine parts. Sarah in the kitchen, over-dripping coffee. Lily in the study, sounds so clear. Mrs. Whittaker paused, sighing. On screen, Arthur sat upright, veined hands steady. The physician asked orientation questions, date, names, place. Arthur answered, slow but sure. He looked at Margaret and said, I have thought long. I know this will anger them. He half smiled. And perhaps trouble you too. Then he signed, each stroke firm. At the end, Arthur looked into the camera. My decision is my decision. Will shut the video before the last word. He leaned back, staring at the black-framed windows. My decision is my decision, he muttered, mocking, hating the echo of his own voice. He swiveled, eyes on the waterfront map pinned with red tacks and blue thread. It could still be built, he thought, if only he had control. But now, Lily held it. It did not feel like disinheritance. It felt like being led away from what he had mistaken for home. He called his lawyer, reading demands as if from a script long written in his head. Competency challenge, injunction, forensic audit. He hung up, punched the wall lightly just enough to hear the hollow thud. Meanwhile, Jacob drove to the old Beaverton apartments. Beige paint peeling, rusted balconies, damp earth, moldy air. Manny, the manager, looked up as he entered. Hey, Jake, Manny said. Building D's roof is leaking again. Contractor says next week. Call them. Tell them if not tomorrow, we switch crews. We have already switched twice, Manny smirked. Miss Lily called. She is tough, the quiet kind. I like that. Jacob chuckled tiredly. She is the only one who does not want this place to collapse. They walked through. An old tenant flagged them about a brown stain spreading in her bathroom ceiling. Jacob scheduled repairs. Apologized. Promised. Each apology stacked like a stone on his back, the halfway weight Arthur had spoken of. In the lot, he stared at small cracks in the asphalt, realizing the harsh truth. Between ideas of green co-living spaces, rental apps, and these leaking roofs, he had abandoned the work. He wanted to tell Arthur he finally saw. But Arthur was gone. Who now, Lily? He sighed. He called her. Rain broke through another ceiling in D12. Manny's on it. I will stay until they show. Thanks, Lily said. Come home for dinner. Sarah's cooking. Jacob laughed softly, smoke light. Sarah cooking, God help us. She is making tomato soup. Even scarier. Lily paused, voice lower. Jake, do not leave Will alone too long. He won't let anyone near, Jacob said. I will try later. That night, Sarah's tomato soup turned out strangely good. The kitchen glowed with a warmth so ordinary it almost felt like home again. Mrs. Whittaker served buttered toast. Jacob teased Sarah one more time and then stopped. Lily cleared the dishes. They avoided mentioning the will until Sarah set her spoon down and said, We need a 1-year plan. Not because the will threatens us. Because if we do not, we will drift apart. We can't drift, Jacob said, pouring water. We are tied by a very big rope called liquidation and handed all to the foundation. Don't joke, Sarah said firmly. What do we do this week? Lily opened her notebook. Tomorrow I will meet the chief accountant to review cash flow. Jacob, you check the entire roof and plumbing repair schedule. Sarah, can you review the janitorial contract? Mr. Kane has raised the price twice this year. I will meet Manny and the property managers. And Will, Jacob echoed, as though naming a locked room. Sarah said, I will call him. He won't come if you do. You think he will show? No, Sarah said. But one day, he will. And I want him to know this table always has a place. Will did not show the next day, or the day after. He stayed in his office, buried in paperwork and anger. But anger could not keep a man away forever when the work itself began to demand him. On the 5th day, an email from Manny, ceiling in D12. Fixed. But CO8 smells damp. And another from accounting. Need approval for roofcraft and hydrofix invoices. If delayed, they stop work. He printed them, laid them on his desk, stared as the words seemed to morph into a language he no longer commanded. By noon, he grabbed his coat and drove home. The yard was still wet. Mrs. Whitaker had cleared most of the wreaths, leaving 3 fresh ones, the scent of lilies mingling with wet wood. Will stepped into the kitchen, Sarah peeling apples, Lily with spreadsheets, Jacob perched with his laptop. Can we talk? Will asked, his voice no longer armored. Sarah nodded, pointed to a chair. Lily set her pen down, eyes steady. I want to see the cash flow, Will said. And I want to know who signs now. I do, Lily answered, direct. But any expense over the limit needs 2 signatures. I want into the system. Add me. It is not a matter of want. Will snapped briefly, then softened. I have to be in. Fine. They looked together. Numbers appeared, rental income, maintenance costs, loan payments, contractor debts. Will leaned in, asking sharp, rapid questions. Questions only someone with 15 years in the company would know to ask. Lily answered plainly. Jacob chimed in when needed. Sarah took notes. When they reached the irregular withdrawals of the prior quarter, Will's face tightened. This, he said, pointing at the flagged line, is the amount I borrowed, all right. I confirmed repayment. If not for he bit back because of Dad the funeral, it would be done. You took it when the company needed it, Lily said evenly. I am not calling you a gag-eater. I just need you to admit it before we move forward. If you admit it, and do not repeat it, I can work with you. Will looked at her. For the first time, he did not see the youngest sister who shouldered others' burdens. He saw someone holding a door open with her own strength, trembling but steady. He bowed his head slightly, as if setting down a heavy load. He finally admitted, bent his back. Fine, I admit it. And I won't do it again unless all 3 of you agree. The words landed like a hook, catching on something solid. We need fixed meetings, Sarah said quickly. Tuesdays and Fridays, 7-page M here. And a group chat for work only. Jacob, no memes. Jacob raised his hand, grinning. Left hand promise. A month passed, rain heavier, but no more brown ceiling leaks. Lily's signature grew firmer. Sarah learned to say no to things she once silently shouldered. Jacob finished one task before starting another. Will learned to call contractors and say thanks for coming early, a phrase he had never thought necessary. But no one believed the struggle was over. Will's lawyers still sent demands, reviews, audits, challenges to Margaret's inbox, harsh notes in an unfinished symphony. She responded, supplying, countering. One afternoon she came to the house, sat in the kitchen. The competency review is settled. The court sees no grounds to block the will. But Will may keep questioning. My suggestion, rather than fight on paper, is to establish internal oversight. Hire an independent auditor quarterly, and if Will wants scrutiny, let him have it within that framework. Will sat silent, eyes on the wall calendar where Lily had marked red for maintenance, green for meetings, yellow for repayments. Fine, he said. We will do it that way. That night, after the others went upstairs, Lily opened the box again. At the bottom lay a photograph. Arthur at Beaverton the year they bought it, rain falling then too. To his left, young Will with hands in pockets. To his right, Sarah laughing into the wind. Jacob clutching rolled blueprints, and on the edge, little Lily beneath an umbrella too large, all of them wet. Arthur was not looking at the camera. He was looking at them. A gaze Lily had never understood until now. Winter passed. Portland mornings opened pale and cold, clouds like paper, sunlight like a child learning to smile. In meetings, Lily proposed replacing Beaverton's failing pipes over 2 years. Will presented a plan to scale back risky investments, building reserves. Jacob demoed a tenant repair app, simple, not grand, but useful. Sarah, without title, became the axis, signing contracts, checking clauses, reminding them to eat lunch. One Tuesday evening, Will arrived late. He dropped an envelope on the table. My lawyer has withdrawn the petition. I withdraw everything. He looked at Lily. We have 1 year. I do not want to waste it. Lily did not say thank you. She said, Good. Tomorrow you go with Jacob to Maple. The pipes there are as old as this house. Will nodded, accepting the small order as rightful. By the end of the quarter, Margaret returned with thin papers. First audit complete. You have worked effectively together, she said. I do not often see this. Will smirked. You do not often see kids doing what their parents wanted. I do not often see people doing what the future asks, Margaret replied, half in jest, half in truth. But the future never runs straight. In May, unseasonal rain caused a landslide at the New West property, tearing the slope like a knife. Costs doubled. Lily said immediately, Sell. Will started to argue, then stopped. Arthur's voice whispered in him. One retreat is a non-loss. He signed off. In June, Jacob lost 2 weeks chasing a solar roof idea, nearly neglecting plumbing repairs. Sarah literally grabbed him by the collar. Jake. He laughed. All right. He returned to his checklist. That week, his app stabilized. Manny called. Finish this before dreaming up the next. In July, Lily noticed Mrs. Whitaker moving slower on the stairs. She ordered her to rest, hired cleaning help. Mrs. Whitaker protested. Lily smiled. You are family. Family does not do this when their backs ache. The woman studied her, then nodded, as if finally setting down a burden carried too long. In August, Sarah ran into Mark, her ex, at a bookstore. He fumbled a what if. She smiled, nodded, walked on. That night, she told Lily, Strangest thing I realized, I do not need answers from anyone anymore. Except myself. Lily hugged her, wordless. A year passed. Autumn rain returned thicker, sharper. Margaret came again, the Hale house now seeming larger because its people moved with more confidence through its halls. She laid a white, blue-rimmed envelope on the table. Auditor certified. County filed. The liquidation clause expires today. No applause. Just the silence of people who had crossed a rope bridge and now felt solid ground. Mrs. Whitaker smiled as if untying an old knot. Sarah exhaled. Jacob raised both hands, whispering, Yeah, as if afraid to wake someone. Will looked at Lily. Thank you, he said. Nothing else. No speeches, no apologies. Just a stone set in the right place. Thank you, Lily replied. She turned to Margaret. Stay for dinner. I would not miss Sarah's tomato soup, Margaret said, making them laugh. After dinner, Lily stepped out back. Rain had thinned to mist. The city below glowed in golden patches, like lamps under porcelain bowls. Inside she heard laughter, Jacob bragging about app downloads, Will repeating Manny's first ever You Are Likeable, Sarah telling Mrs. Whitaker they would rehang Arthur's favorite paintings tomorrow. All those sounds merged into something like home. She remembered Arthur not signing papers, not lecturing over balance sheets, but in that photo, standing in the rain, watching his children. She understood why he chose the word betrayal. Not to condemn, but to push them to the cliff's edge, force them to look down, then up, then choose to walk together on new ground. She turned back inside, pausing at the doorway, seeing her siblings. They were not perfect. They would argue again over dish towels over another Salem property. Will would chase margins, Sarah would slip into silence, Jacob would run after horizons, and, She would still stay up with spreadsheets, sometimes crying for no reason. But they had a year of clashing, forgiving, adjusting, and some hook had finally caught the wall. Somewhere, Arthur might be smiling that tilted smile, gray eyes narrowing, lips pressed in a thin line. "Stand firm," Lily whispered this time in her own voice. And she stepped back inside, into the hum of people, of dishes, of rain. Not a grand inheritance, but what Arthur had fought to preserve to his last breath. An imperfect family, choosing each other once more, in this land of rain, in this red brick house, in this moment. Shadows of the past. The following autumn, Portland was once again drenched in rain. Water dripped steadily from the eaves of the Hale house, streaking the brick courtyard below. A year had passed since Margaret, the lawyer, had declared the final clause of Arthur's will expired. The Hale family had kept the company, kept the red brick home, and so it seemed, kept their fragile unity. But fractures do not disappear in a single year. They simply lie dormant, like cracks beneath asphalt, waiting for enough rain to widen them. Will sat in his 17th floor office, staring at the blurred Willamette River beyond rain-streaked glass. He had stopped filing lawsuits, stopped midnight calls to lawyers, stopped open defiance. But nothing inside him was at rest. He had always believed this company was his lifeblood. Arthur giving it to Lily, the youngest, the dreamer, the one who cried too easily, was an insult. He cooperated, yes, but cooperation was not surrender. He still kept his old connections, investors, MBA classmates, city officials who owed him favors. Part of him longed to prove Arthur wrong, to show Lily could not bear the weight, that the company needed a firmer hand. His phone buzzed. Caller ID, Derek Lowe, Cascade Capital. Will answered. Derek, famed for buy low, sell high, was an old drinking buddy from a Seattle real estate conference. Will, Derek said, I hear your company's restructuring. Will hesitated. We are considering options. Derek chuckled softly. I have an offer. Cascade Capital wants to buy all of Beaverton. 10% above market. Quick and clean. I doubt Lily could refuse such a sweet deal. And you could lead the transaction. Cascade would give you oversight of our new Eastside investments. Will said nothing. The words echoed in his head, a dangerous whisper. Accept, and he could step back into the center. Refuse, and watch Lily and Jacob spin their naive plans. I will think about it, Will said, hanging up. Meanwhile, at the company office, Lily leaned over Jacob's report. The tenant repair app he would build now had over 300 users, saving thousands in call costs. Jacob sat beside her, animated. We could add online payments, he said. Rent gets paid faster. Late debt drops by 5%. Lily nodded, trying to focus, but her mind drifted. For a year she had learned to stand upright, to say no, to sign the papers Arthur once signed. Yet every night, back in her old room, she still felt like the youngest child, the one Arthur had called kind. Kindness was not always enough. She remembered his letter. You may refuse. Sometimes she wanted to. But then she thought of Sarah, her sister, who sacrificed her marriage for peace. Of Jacob, who was finally learning to finish what he started. Of Will, still a mountain ready to erupt. She could not abandon them. Sarah, meanwhile, had resumed teaching part-time at the local high school American history to restless 15- and 16-year-olds. To them, she was not the eldest Hale or the keeper of family balance, but simply Miss Hale, who told stories of the Civil War and civil rights. That gave her room to breathe. But each night at home she returned to her other role, mediator. She listened to Lily's complaints about slow contractors, Jacob's stream of new ideas, Will's curt grumbles about indecision. She did not intervene, but she knew the rope was tightening again. One late November evening, they gathered for dinner in the wide kitchen. Rain lashed the windows like 1,000 knocking fingers. Sarah ladled soup, Jacob sliced bread, Lily set plates. Will arrived late, coat soaked, and sat without a word, glancing only at Lily. Something on your mind? Lily asked, steady. Will gave a thin smile. Just heard an interesting offer. Someone wants Beaverton. 10% above market. I think we should consider it. No, Lily said instantly. That is our most stable income. We keep it. Will leaned back, arms folded. Sometimes selling is the way to keep. Father was wrong to hold too much until it rotted. The air thickened. Sarah set her spoon down, voice firm, though gentle. Will, this is not just property. It is legacy. Arthur wanted affordable housing for the elderly. Selling would betray him. Will's eyes flashed. Betrayal, there is that word again. Jacob cut in. Not everything is win-lose, Will. Selling now would only prove exactly what he feared. Will slammed the table, echo sharp. Enough. You do not understand. If we keep following Lily, this company dies in 3 years. You want to preserve legacy? You will preserve ashes. Lily met his stare. Voice trembling but unyielding. I won't sign. No matter who you agree with out there, I won't sign. Silence. Rain pressed harder against the glass. That night, Sarah could not sleep. She sat in the small library, flipping through Arthur's notebooks. Amid contracts and schedules, one page stood out. If Will goes too far, remember, his grandfather lost everything to one greedy deal. Blood does not change, but choices can. Sarah sat still, shivering at the cycle. Had Arthur foreseen this? Had he left not just a company, but a test repeated until someone strong enough broke the loop? The next day, Lily went to Margaret. Mrs. Pierce, she asked, is there any way Will could sell without my signature? Margaret studied her. That question tells me you know exactly where you stand. No, he can't sell without consent. But you must understand he can still break from within. By pulling investors, by eroding trust. You need to be ready. Ready? How? By proving to him yourself that you can be as strong as Arthur and more merciful. Lily fell silent, recalling Arthur's line. You will bear resentment. Perhaps now, she thought, it truly began. Choices in the rain. After the dinner shattered by the sell Beaverton proposal, the Hale family scattered like raindrops across glass. Sarah lingered over the dishes. Jacob stood on the porch listening to the storm. Lily gathered papers and retreated to the study. Will drove into the wet slopes of West Hills, brake lights ahead flashing like blades across the night. His phone buzzed. Derek Lowe. Will. Derek's voice was the same, smooth, warm. Have you spoken with the family? Not finished, Will answered curtly. No matter. Cascade can move fast. I will send a term sheet in the morning. You do not need signatures to discuss, only good faith. Quote, trust me, in Portland's damp chill, a clean deal is the warm blanket everyone craves. Will stayed silent. He wanted to say, I am not a salesman. Instead he said, send it. By morning the email arrived. Letter of intent to purchase Beaverton, entirely 10% above market. Quick close, as is, where is. At the bottom. Offer valid for 7 days. A baited hook, already tied. Will printed it, folded it, slid it into his coat pocket. Leaving his 17th floor office, he passed Manny's truck parked outside. Manny had come to discuss the newly patched roof on Building D. Will caught his reflection in the glass, dark coat, collar raised, a man beginning to look like Arthur in the furrow of his brow. He hated the resemblance. Downstairs, Lily spoke with the CFO and Jacob. Spreadsheets sprawled, contractor debts, reserves, late rents from 3 new tenants. She saw Will through the glass. Come in. I am waiting for Hydrofix's quote. Will dropped the envelope on the table, remained standing. Cascade Capital wants Beaverton. Good price. Quick close. You should consider it. I said last night, Lily replied evenly. You are refusing a chance to unload old pipes and leaking roofs. We could sell, clear debts, reinvest in 2 new sites in Gresham I have reviewed. Jacob glanced between them. I think we have another way. Ground lease, 99 years, with a non-profit housing group. They raise capital through LIHTC. We keep management rights, stable cash flow, no sale. Will snorted. Another acronym. I am sick of acronyms. This one is real money. Jacob shot back, rare defiance in his tone. And it echoes Dad's intent. Preserve affordable housing without losing the company. Lily looked at Will. You may not like it, but listen before you tear it down. Will gave a dry laugh. Arthur said that to me once. Then listen now, Lily said, steady. Jacob presented slides, capital stack, projected repairs, Bridge Northwest Housing as partner, stable cash flow, reduced maintenance costs. Trade-offs, less upside, more restrictions. Will paused. So in other words, we lock part of our future to the will of a non-profit board. We trade upside for stability, Lily said. Speculation for family purpose. Me for us. Will studied her. Sometimes he hated the way she pronounced us, as if it was the only word that mattered. But in that moment, he glimpsed something else. In that us, Arthur lived again no longer as a shadow, but as breath. He set the envelope back down. Fine. But I will meet Derek. I want to know what game he is playing. If it is more than price... Don't go alone, Sarah's voice cut from the doorway. I will come. Will smirked. What will you do? Read scripture in the middle of negotiations? I will listen. And remind you of things you would rather forget? A pause. Will nodded. All right. A boutique hotel bar on Burnside. Dim wood, soft jazz slipping like a sleek cat. Derek arrived on time, long coat, pre-drawn smile. He shook Will's hand firm, 2 beats, nodded at Sarah, with a faint, unexpected ally look. Will? Derek said, settling in. Glad you came. And your sister? Sarah, she replied, calm. Pleasure. Derek ordered 2 wines, 1 soda. Ritual, hypnotic. Listen. Cascade buys, Hale sells, everyone happy. You will manage the reinvested portfolio where your talent belongs. He already has a place that fits, Sarah interjected. Derek breezed past her, eyes on Will. When Arthur was alive, I respected him. Tough. Too tough. Times change. Next year, rates won't fall. Beaverton repairs will cost. Do you want to lug that stone through the storm or toss it to broader shoulders? He raised his glass. Me? Will turned his glass slowly. And what after you buy? Renovate. Derek smiled. Reposition tenants. Sarah frowned. Whoa, reposition means what? Derek shrugged. Cash for keys, some market resets. I am no devil. I am just not a church. Sarah's gaze leveled. Arthur's will protected affordable housing for seniors. You know that. He is gone, Derek said softly, without malice, only cold. The living must choose wisely. Will chuckled, humorless. You want me to take this, wisdom, home, sell it to my sisters? No, Derek leaned closer. I want you to bring yourself back. You carry weight. Do you want the wheel? His eyes sharpened. And Will, do not think... I do not know about last quarter's cash flow. I do not judge. I understand those who dare. The words hit Will like a stone. How do you know? Small city, Derek said, shrugging. Banks talk, contractors talk. Information flows like Portland rain through every crack. Sarah leaned back. This meeting is done. She rose. Thanks for being as clear as the rain. Derek stood too. 1 week, Will. I do not like waiting. Outside, rain fell heavy, a curtain. Will stood under the awning. See, Sarah? This is the game. He even buys the rain. No one buys rain, she said. Only walks through it. 2 days later, an off-season snowstorm struck Portland. Rain froze on power lines. Neighborhoods lost electricity. Beaverton went dark. Manny called at 5 a.m. generators down. Mrs. Alvarez in D12 needs her inhaler. Elevators out. Lily grabbed her coat. Jacob scraped ice from the car. Sarah packed blankets and food. Will hesitated just a second, then joined, shovel in hand. Beaverton's lot was ghost white. Wind whistled down open halls. Manny met them, flashlight in hand. Generators dead. Repair crew stuck on I-5. Check every unit, Lily ordered. Sarah, with Manny. Jake, the generator. Will come with me, D12. Stair rails iced, steps slick. In D12, Mrs. Alvarez wheezed in scarves. Will knelt, slow. Inhaler. She pointed to a drawer. Lily lit the way. Will found it, helped her breathe. Her chest eased. They lit candles, gave blankets. Will carried her downstairs, arms trembling from cold and adrenaline. In the hall, a child clutched his mother's hand. Jacob yelled at a mechanic, generator coughed alive, lights blazed, tenants cheered. Hours later, Beaverton was warm again. Lily watched Will settle Mrs. Alvarez on a couch. He stood, meeting her eyes. Something inside him cracked thin as ice, but once solid. He exhaled, smiled tiredly. All right, Lily. I won't sell. She did not say I told you so. She only nodded, dialing Hydrofix. Thanks for coming, bill me today. On the way home, Will's phone rang. Derek, I am not selling, Will said. Silence 2 beats, then a low laugh. Will, do not be sentimental. One heroic night and you think you have saved the world. I am talking long term. Long term, Will replied, sharp, is what I saw tonight. People in Beaverton are not expenses. Quote, they are the reason. Then I will talk to the bank, Derek said, suddenly steel. I know they want to trim your credit line. When they call debt, you will call me. Will hung up. Portland gleamed white, frozen like an old photograph. He will buy our debt, he told Sarah. Loan to own. Then beat him with plans, she said. Not words. That afternoon, they met Margaret in the kitchen, coffee steaming, papers filling fast with pencil marks. If Derek buys your debt, Margaret said, he can change terms or call it early. But the bank won't sell if risk looks low and relations are strong. She turned to Lily. Work with them first. Present the 99-year lease with Bridge Northwest Housing, City Housing Bureau's support, stable cash flow. Sign a term sheet. I will call the credit risk director myself. Jacob added. My app has data response times, repair rates. Use it to prove management quality. Will, I will ask Manny and contractors for letters. And I will call the bankers I snapped at. I will apologize. Sarah raised an eyebrow, smiling. Mark the calendar. Margaret chuckled. Do it. And Will, when Derek threatens, make him write it. Paper cuts both ways. 2 weeks later, Lily entered the Willamette Pacific boardroom. Glass walls, oak table, 3 bank officers. She laid out a binder, ground lease plan, housing bureau letter, draft from Bridge Northwest, latest audit, app data, contractor attestations. She spoke neither too fast nor too slow. Not of legacy, but of cash flow, risk, technical repair timelines. All we ask, she said, is time and clarity. If we keep occupancy and meet repair milestones, maintain the credit line, do not sell our debt. The risk director pressed 2 sharp questions. Lily answered with figures, clauses. When they left, Sarah sighed as if she would crossed a rope bridge. Margaret nodded. Good. Next day, the letter came. Credit line extended, repairs and quarterly reports required. Bank has no intent to transfer debt. That night, Derek called Will. You win this round, he said flat, no laughter. But you have shackled yourself to a 99-year nonprofit deal. Don't expect a pretty exit. Looking through the window at Lily with Manny, Will said, I do not need a pretty exit. I need the right road. Fine, Derek said, voice hard. When you tire of being right, call me. The line went dead. A month later, the ground lease was signed. Bridge Northwest raised capital via low-income housing tax credits. Hale Residential retained management, fees, and shared cash flow. Local press ran the photo. Lily and Bridge's director holding pens in front of Beaverton, Sarah beside them, Will and Jacob behind. Will was not looking at the camera. He was watching elderly tenants smiling through the fence. Manny hosted a town hall in the lot, folding tables, coffee urns, donuts. Lily spoke briefly. mic crackling, about repairs and the tenant app. Mrs. Alvarez raised her hand. Thank you. I do not want to leave this home. Lily bowed her head. Will handed her a grocery voucher, a small bandage on long cracks. At home, Sarah laid blankets for Mrs. Whitaker. Jacob checked sensors. The house breathed like a fever-broken. Later, Will entered Arthur's study. Lily looked up as he placed a cloth bundle on the desk, Arthur's old Parker fountain pen. I kept it since. That day, Will said, staring at the nib, I thought I needed it to prove I was his heir. But I nailed myself to the wall with it. He pushed it toward her. Now it belongs where it should. Lily touched the cold barrel. Are you sure? Will nodded. Arthur wrote, Betrayal, not just for money. I betrayed the house in my mind before the company. I saw Manny as a cost, Mrs. Alvarez as liability. I am sorry. Not for forgiveness. Just because it must be said, Lily did not cry. She slid the pen into Arthur's now her desk. We are far from done. You know that. I know, Will exhaled. But one thing is done. By summer's end, they reorganized the living room. Arthur's portrait hung half an inch lower, closer, Sarah said. Jacob framed the Beaverton lease photo beside it. Mrs. Whitaker placed birch branches in a vase, whispered, You have done what he wanted. Margaret arrived with another envelope. Court's confirmation. Second-year requirements complete. Credit line extended 3 years. Audit rates you strong. Arthur would be proud. He would be proud of you too, Sarah said. They toasted with her tomato soup and buttered bread. Even Margaret drank a little wine. That night, Lily stood alone in the living room. Rain veiled the windows, whispering a song she already knew. She faced Arthur's portrait. Not bowed. Not pleading. We are walking, she said softly. Not the prettiest road, but the right one as I understand it. In the kitchen, Will washed glasses, sleeves rolled. Jacob joked about Salem cruise. Sarah shook her head, smiling at his donut please. Mrs. Whitaker dimmed the lights, leaving warm gold over the table. Rain returned to Portland, soft gray threading every street. At Beaverton, no brown stains on ceilings. Fresh paint, double-paned windows, Mrs. Alvarez's red geraniums on her sill. Manny strolled the halls, jotting notes, asking a child in a fuzzy hat. Still loose outlet, the boy shook his head. Fix. At Hale's downtown office, a sign. Hiring, property manager community experience preferred. Will reviewed resumes, chose a veteran with a warm voice. Sarah refined HR policies, adding volunteer days. Jacob launched App 2.0, with neighbors helping neighbors. Lily signed papers, pausing at one. Tenant winter support plan. She underlined, Don't just give blankets. Ask what else they need. She looked up. Rain danced on the sidewalk. She smiled. Stand firm was no longer Arthur's command. It was a muscle. Somewhere in the rain's murmur, Arthur might be smiling again, tilted, gray eyes narrowing, lips a thin line. He had used one heavy word to drive them to the cliff's edge. They had looked down, then up, then stepped forward. None of them perfect. None saved by miracle. Only small choices, repeated, in a city of long rain. And those choices, together, had done what the will alone could not, turned an estate into a home